Ladies and gentlemen, there are thresholds within the soul, invisible lines that once crossed allow chaos to step in, dressed as kindness, cloaked in innocence. Every individual you encounter is not merely a person, but a symbol. They carry energies, archetypes, patterns that seek expression through your life. And if you are not conscious, not vigilant, you may unknowingly allow the wrong symbols to settle in your psyche. There are certain kinds of people who don't just ask for favors, they ask for pieces of your soul. They request things that on the surface seem small, even harmless, but carry with them an unseen cost: your integrity, your time, your clarity, your autonomy. Today, we will unmask 5 such requests. These are signs not of healthy connection, but of the shadow at play. There is a quiet intelligence within us, an inner knowing that exists beyond logic, beyond explanation. It stirs in the gut, in the heart, in the dreams that speak when the world is asleep. This is intuition, a subtle voice of the deeper psyche, shaped not just by personal experience, but by the vast unconscious inherited from all those who came before. It is not superstition, not paranoia, but a form of ancient perception, speaking in symbols, sensations, and silent urgencies. When someone asks you to betray that inner knowing, when they dismiss your instincts, mock your hesitations, or demand that you override your discomfort in the name of reason or relationship, they are not simply asking for trust. They are asking for disconnection from your own self. The tragedy is that this betrayal rarely feels like a betrayal at first. It often wears the disguise of logic, of compromise, of love. A friend tells you you're overthinking something, and you second, guess the tightness in your chest. A partner urges you to give someone the benefit of the doubt, and you quiet the red flags that flash inside your mind. A parent, a mentor, a peer reminds you to be rational, and without realizing it, you begin to silence the very part of you that sees what the eyes do not. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, you learn to invalidate yourself. Intuition is not loud. It doesn't argue, doesn't insist, doesn't scream. That is both its power and its vulnerability. It speaks once, maybe twice, and then it waits. If you ignore it long enough, it goes quiet, not because it has failed you, but because it has learned that you no longer listen. And when that happens, you are not just more susceptible to manipulation. You become your own captor. You begin to make choices that betray your essence, not because you want to, but because you've lost the compass that once guided you away from danger and toward truth. When a person asks you to dismiss that compass, they are, in essence, telling you to trust them more than you trust yourself. They may not say it directly, but the message is clear: my narrative is more valid than your experience. And that is the seed of psychological disempowerment. Because once you place someone else's voice above your own, you surrender the throne of your psyche. You become a stranger in your own soul, constantly looking outward for answers that were meant to rise from within. The ones who truly value your presence will never force you to suppress your perception. They may challenge you, yes. They may ask you to consider other perspectives, to examine your fears, to separate projection from pattern. But they will never demand that you mute yourself in order to remain in their good graces. There is a profound difference between someone helping you explore your thoughts and someone gaslighting your inner world. The former fosters growth, the latter causes fragmentation, and the cost of that fragmentation is not theoretical. It shows up in insomnia, in sudden anxiety, in relationships that feel inexplicably draining. It manifests in your body, in your dreams, in that lingering feeling that something is off even when you can't name it. That's the soul's way of knocking from the inside, reminding you that you've left yourself behind. And while it is never too late to return, the path back begins with recognizing the moment you first walked away, the moment you silenced the voice that once told you, "This isn't right." The moment you agreed to trust someone else more than the sacred intelligence that lives within you and has always known there are people who come into your life not with the intention to grow beside you, but with a quiet hunger to be carried. At first, it feels natural to help, to listen, to hold space, to offer comfort when someone is hurting. After all, empathy is one of the highest expressions of humanity. But what begins as compassion can, if left unchecked, slowly transform into a one-sided agreement where your energy becomes their shelter, your time becomes their therapy, your mind becomes the container for their unresolved pain. They are not asking for connection. They are asking for possession of your emotional availability, and often they do so without ever acknowledging what it costs you to stay available. It starts small: a late night phone call, a venting session, an emotional breakdown that you are expected to attend to without boundaries. Over time, you begin to notice that your own emotional space is shrinking. You feel the weight of their pain even when they are not around. Your thoughts drift toward their issues before your feet even hit the floor in the morning. They become the main character in your internal world, while your own needs slip quietly into the background, waiting for a turn that never seems to come. And when you finally do speak up, express your fatigue, mention your limits, the roles reverse. Suddenly you're the one who's selfish, uncaring, unavailable. This is not love. This is emotional colonization. There is a difference between someone who is temporarily in pain and someone who is perpetually dependent. The former seeks support to heal and evolve. The latter feeds on support to avoid healing. They are not seeking resolution. They are avoiding the responsibility of self-awareness. And the more you give, the less they do. They become accustomed to outsourcing their internal labor, their fears, traumas, anxieties to you, until the lines between your struggles and theirs begin to blur. What you once offered as a gift becomes an expectation. What once felt like care begins to feel like obligation. You start losing parts of yourself in the name of being there for someone else. Your own moods become tangled in their volatility. Your plans revolve around their crises. Your peace becomes a currency used to stabilize their chaos. And this slow erosion is often disguised as loyalty, as sacrifice, even as love. But love that costs your own emotional survival is not love. It's a form of self-abandonment. And it's often reinforced by guilt they may not even consciously impose, but which you carry anyway because you've been conditioned to equate worth with usefulness. Eventually, the soul begins to resist. Subtle signs emerge: burnout, resentment, moments of dissociation, the quiet realization that you're exhausted but can't name why. These are not signs of weakness. They are the psyche's protest against being used as someone else's emotional scaffolding. It is the unconscious mind refusing to be the dumping ground for problems that do not belong to you. And if you continue to ignore these signs, the body will eventually join the protest through tension, illness, fatigue, reminding you that you were never meant to absorb what others refuse to process themselves. True connection does not ask for the silencing of the self. It is reciprocal, fluid, built on mutual recognition of each person's responsibility for their own healing. When someone asks you to carry their emotional burdens indefinitely, they are not asking for closeness, they are asking for dependence without effort. And the longer you comply, the more you teach them that they never have to change because someone else always will. You are not their savior, you are not their solution. You are not the reservoir for wounds they refuse to name or face or heal. There is a moment, subtle, quiet, almost forgettable, when someone asks you not to speak, not in anger, not with cruelty, but with a softness that hides its true nature. They say things like, "Let's not get into that," or "This isn't the right time," or "You always bring up problems when things are going well." It doesn't sound aggressive, it doesn't sound abusive, it sounds reasonable. And that is precisely how silencing begins, not with chains, but with velvet ropes that feel too gentle to resist, but still hold you in place. When someone asks for your silence in moments that require your truth, they are not asking for peace. They are asking for control over the narrative. And that control comes at the cost of your authenticity. Your voice is not just sound. It is the bridge between your inner world and the outer one. To speak your truth is to affirm your reality, to give form to your experience, to resist erasure. So when someone repeatedly dismisses, deflects, or delays your need to express yourself, they are not making space for harmony, they are cultivating denial. It's not that the topic is inappropriate, it's that your perspective threatens their comfort. It challenges the structure they've built, often a fragile structure, one that depends on silence to survive. And so they protect it, not by listening, not by confronting, but by asking you to mute yourself for the sake of keeping things calm. You begin to notice that the air feels heavier around certain subjects. There are landmines of conversation you tiptoe around to avoid being told that you're too sensitive, too dramatic, too much. You start editing your sentences before they leave your mouth. You rehearse how to bring something up and then talk yourself out of it. And soon, your inner dialogue becomes more crowded than any room you walk into. You are no longer just trying to express something. You are calculating how much of yourself it is safe to reveal. That is not communication, that is self-censorship, taught to you by someone who made your truth feel like a threat over time. This silence becomes a habit. You begin to doubt the validity of your own experiences. If they get so uncomfortable every time you bring something up, maybe you are overreacting. If they say you always ruin the mood, maybe you are the problem. This internal erosion doesn't happen all at once. It builds like sediment, each silenced truth layering over the last, until you are carrying a weight of unspoken words that begins to shape your very identity. You're no longer just quiet, you feel invisible, unheard, like you're living beside your life rather than inside it. When people ask for your silence to protect their comfort, they often frame it as love. They say they don't want to fight. They say they can't handle confrontation. They say they just want things to be good between you. But what they really mean is, I want your presence without your reality. That is not love, that is conditional acceptance. That is the demand for performance instead of participation. And every time you comply, every time you shrink your truth to maintain their comfort, you are participating in your own erasure. The irony is that silence never preserves relationships, it poisons them. What you suppress will always resurface, and usually in ways more destructive than honest dialogue ever could. Real connection is not built on the absence of conflict, but on the presence of honesty. The people who truly value you will never ask you to disown your voice just to keep their version of peace intact. They will sit with discomfort, they will struggle with it, but they will not ask you to carry the weight of pretending everything is fine when it isn't. Because to silence your truth is to fracture your soul, and no relationship is worth the cost of losing access to your own voice. There are people who will ask for your loyalty not as a reflection of mutual respect or shared values, but as a shield against their own accountability. They expect you to stand by them not because they have earned that trust, but because they demand it as a condition of your relationship. This kind of loyalty is not built on truth, on integrity, on conscious connection. It is built on fear, on guilt, on the unspoken rule that questioning them is betrayal. When someone expects your unwavering allegiance while refusing to examine their own actions, what they are really asking for is your silence, your complicity, your surrender. Loyalty in its true form is sacred. It is not blind. It does not require the abandonment of discernment. It is a dynamic energy, something that grows and is nurtured through honesty, through shared accountability, through the courage to challenge and be challenged. But when loyalty is weaponized, it becomes a form of psychological bondage. You are not a partner in truth, you are an accomplice in illusion. They tell you, sometimes with words and sometimes only with reactions, that disagreement equals disloyalty. That questioning them means you don't care, that holding them accountable makes you the enemy, and so you begin to tiptoe, to second, guess, to censor the very parts of you that are trying to keep the relationship real. The deeper cost of this dynamic is often hidden in plain sight. It shows up in the moments you bite your tongue when they cross a line, in the justifications you make for behavior that, if done by someone else, you would never tolerate, in the growing pile of grievances you keep stored within because airing them would mean being cast as disloyal, as difficult, as unsupportive. Slowly, you become complicit in your own suppression. Not because you agree with their actions, but because you've been conditioned to believe that loyalty means protecting someone's image even at the cost of your own truth. You find yourself defending them to others, even as a quiet voice inside you begins to feel uneasy. You rationalize, you excuse, you minimize, not because you don't see the cracks, but because you've been taught to equate truth, telling with betrayal, and that internal conflict becomes a kind of quiet suffering. You are loyal, but you're also lying, not necessarily with your words, but with your silence, with your refusal to name what you see, with the energy it takes to carry someone else's unexamined self across your back while pretending everything is fine. What often goes unnoticed is that the people who demand this kind of loyalty are usually not loyal to you in return. They are loyal to their version of you, the version that supports them without question, that stays small so they can stay unchallenged, that reflects back the story they want to believe about themselves. And the moment you step outside of that role, the moment you speak a truth they don't want to face, their loyalty disappears. It was never about connection, it was about control, about keeping you within the bounds of what feels safe for them, even if it means sacrificing your dignity in the process. True loyalty is not afraid of discomfort. It is not threatened by hard conversations. It welcomes truth not as a threat, but as a tool. The people who value you will not ask you to keep quiet about what's wrong so they can keep feeling right. They will not require you to nod in agreement while your soul quietly protests. They will not measure your worth by how well you protect their image at the expense of your own integrity. Because when someone asks you for loyalty without offering accountability, they are not asking for partnership, they are asking for submission masquerading as love. And the longer you stay in that agreement, the more disconnected you become from your own sense of right and wrong, from your ability to trust your voice, from your right to walk away when what you're asked to protect is no longer worth protecting. There are people who will not ask you to stop growing outright, but they will respond to your growth in ways that make it feel unsafe to continue. It might be subtle, a look, a comment, a tone of voice that only changes when you begin to shine a little too brightly. They might praise you in public but withdraw in private, joke about your ambition but never quite laugh, offer compliments with an undercurrent of comparison or discomfort. And while they may not say it out loud, the message becomes clear. Your expansion makes them uneasy. When someone asks you to shrink, to dim your light, to make yourself smaller so that they can feel more secure, they are not loving you, they are managing you. It often begins in moments of joy. You achieve something important to you, and you share it hoping for connection, for celebration, but instead of warmth you feel coolness, instead of enthusiasm you sense indifference or irritation. They might change the subject, redirect the attention, or bring up something from their own life that overshadows your moment, and suddenly what should have been a memory of fulfillment becomes an experience of guilt, confusion, or even shame. You start to question whether your success is causing harm, whether your happiness is too loud, whether your growth is something to be kept private. That inner questioning is where the danger begins, because instead of standing in your truth, you begin to edit yourself. You downplay your achievements, you soften your opinions, you avoid talking about the things that light you up, not because you've changed, but because you're trying to protect the relationship. You sense that the more you become yourself, the more strained the connection becomes. And so you compromise not by changing who you are completely, but by holding back just enough to keep things peaceful, to avoid the friction that your authenticity seems to provoke over time. This shrinking becomes habitual. You anticipate their reactions before you even speak. You filter your words, your dreams, your excitement. You start to delay your progress, sometimes consciously, sometimes not, because a part of you has linked your evolution to disconnection. And the cost of this quiet self-abandonment is immense. It's not just about unshared moments or lost enthusiasm. It's about a fracture in your identity, a dissonance between who you are and who you allow yourself to be in their presence. You feel it in your body, the tightening of your chest, the weight in your stomach, the subtle exhaustion that comes from pretending not to be as alive as you actually are. What makes this pattern so difficult to recognize is that it often exists inside relationships that look supportive on the surface. These people may even believe they love you, but love that requires your smallness is not love. It is insecurity in disguise, a need to control the emotional environment by limiting the range of your expression. They are not trying to understand you. They are trying to keep you within the version of you that feels manageable, familiar, non-threatening. And if you comply, if you continue to edit yourself to make others comfortable, you begin to disappear from your own life. The people who are meant to be in your life will not feel eclipsed by your growth. They will not flinch at your light, nor ask you to step back so they can feel taller. They will celebrate with you, challenge you to go further, hold you accountable in ways that encourage movement rather than containment. They will not confuse your evolution with arrogance, nor will they make you choose between belonging and becoming. Because real connection does not demand your contraction, it makes space for your full expression. Even when that expression changes everything around you, we must remember, not all who smile at us are allies of our growth. Some are lessons mirrors that reflect the boundaries we have yet to set, the wounds we have yet to close. To walk the path of individuation, of becoming your full and whole self, you must guard your psyche against those who trade your peace for their comfort. These 5 requests may come wrapped in kindness, in love, even in need, but beneath them lies an invitation not to connection, but to disconnection from yourself. Decline it, not in anger, not in judgment, but in wisdom, because the most sacred duty you have in this life is to remain loyal to your soul. Thank you.